Folks, happy Tuesday. Welcome to another meeting of a gathering, I should say, of good-natured folks such as yourselves. Um, yeah, I was really hoping that we'd be able to be outside tonight, but it's a little damp. So I've come in, but while I was out on the patio, here. I did a little checking. I've got a surprise I'm going to show you in just a second. As long as the furry roommates here don't try to eat it. Do you remember a few weeks ago, we talked about, I think I showed you some photos of beetle cocoons. Um, beetles are like butterflies and moths. They have 4 stages to their life cycle. They start off as an egg, and then they're a larva, and then they pupate, and then they become an adult. Um, they don't spin a cocoon made out of silk. They and not all of them actually make a cocoon. Sometimes they just kind of shed into a pupation state. But the ones that construct cocoons usually will build them out of the things that are surrounding them, which is usually soil. And that's what we had going on from some pretty large larvae that our restoration crew had found last winter when they were removing some trees. Some of the trees we have to take down, they're mushy inside. The wood has gotten kind of soft. That is perfect habitat for beetles. So I'd inherited this Ziploc bag of mystery grubs. And after setting them up in an aquarium, actually they left, they spent most of the winter in the refrigerator before they went out into an aquarium full of dirt out there on the deck behind the house. Well, I kept checking, and I could feel motion inside these dirt cocoons. They really did look like clods of dirt, but you could see that they were pretty regularly shaped. A hunk of soil on its own oftentimes is got jagged edges to it, but a cocoon made by an insect will be fairly smooth on the side. So anyway, I could feel something inside there. Wasn't sure what it was. Just on a whim, a little while ago, I looked out, and I had checked in that aquarium last Friday, and I didn't see anything. But look who we have today. This, let's see, can I get that to focus better? So this is a beetle that belongs to a genus called Osmoderma. They are supposed to have a leathery scent to them. Now, this one, surprisingly enough, smells like apples. I realized that I'm going to have to pay closer attention now, because there were, gosh, I think there were 7 beetle larvae that I put in that aquarium. Just now I looked, I only found this one. So I don't know if they're just now starting to hatch, or if the other ones are somewhere down in the soil. But they do undergo a pretty distinct life change besides turning into an adult, which has 6 obvious legs. And by the way, beetles, they belong to the order Coleoptera, which refers to their wings, which what we see as the outer shell of the beetle here. These are actually the forewings. And if this beetle were to fly, those wings would shift up out of the way, and a much more fragile translucent wing would be underneath, and those would power the flight of this beetle. So besides, turning into an adult that way and becoming reproductive, they also change their diet. And at this stage, they are known to feed on fruit, which is what this little one is doing. And boy, I wish I could get the camera. I don't think it'll I think it's just going to get blurrier the closer I get. But here's a nice up close but blurry view of the beetle. It has been chewing on this apple ever since I set the apple down in front of it. In the wild, the adults would look for fallen fruit to feed on and get some sweetness from. But as we so often say, this is really the last stage. These will live for a few weeks, but it's not they're not in the stage for nearly as long as they were in their larval stage. So their primary purpose is to find a mate and get some eggs produced. But they will feed, which does extend their life, as opposed to some insects like when we talked about the giant silk moths lacking mouth parts. They can't last very long as adults because they don't feed. So they can only live off of whatever energy they were able to store up in that larval stage. So this is beetle number 1. And I'm going to put it aside here in the hopes that the furry roommates will not eat the apple or the beetle. No, come here, buddy. Boca, why don't you come up here? You come up. Attaboy. All right. So beetle number 2 is actually, I think there's 4 of them in here. We have at Hickory Nose, we have quite a few things that eat live food. We've got some, I think we've got a toad these days. We had some salamanders. There's all the turtles, bearded dragons. Maybe we're down to 1. I'm not, yeah, I think we only have 1 lizard right now. Anyway, insects form a part of these animals' diets, and sourcing them from the wild isn't always possible. We don't have that kind of time to get the variety of insects or the insects with the proper nutrient content. So, but there's in the wonderful world of the internet, there's always places you can order from. And one of the insects that we make quite a bit of use of is, well, they're sold in the pet trade as superworms. And they're actually the larvae of these beetles here. Now, these guys are a lot more active than our osmodermal beetle was. Thought there was a superworm in here that had not yet transformed, but of course now I'm not seeing it. This little container here has been very noisy lately as these worms have pupated and then turned into adults. They are now, I don't know if I've got males and females. Frankly, I haven't looked that closely at these. But there's been all kinds of little scratching noises in here as they've been going about exploring their tiny habitat, and hopefully thinking about going on some dates. I would love to see if we could get some reproduction going on in here. I've got some leaf litter for the adults, moisture in here. They love to eat, as this other beetle is doing, they like to eat fruit. I've been putting chunks of apple in there for them as well. And they also like citrus, oranges and stuff. But they've been a fun little pet to have around. And this is just a fraction. When they order superworms for the Nature Center, they come in a big writhing bag of larvae. And as long as they are kept as a group, they don't tend to pupate. It's when they get isolated that they go into pupations. It's kind of a interesting insight into their life cycle. All right, I'm going to put this down. And that was beetle number 2. Beetle number 3 is actually not a live beetle at all. It's, gosh, I have had this little necklace for I don't know, 30 or 40 years. It's a takeoff on an Egyptian um, scarab beetle carving. The Egyptians paid a lot of attention, as we know, to the natural world around them, and there is a lot of carvings like this in jewelry and in hieroglyphics and things in pyramids. And I forget where I got this from, but you can see the front of it here is a beetle. The backside has some other sorts of carvings, and I'm not an Egyptologist. I'm not exactly sure what these mean. One of them looks kind of like a bird. Um, but the reason I bring this up is a couple of articles here. Susie's been great to share some magazines that she has received, and I thought it might be kind of fun to share some of these articles. This first one is from National Parks magazine. This is from the spring of this year. They have a whole article on dung beetles. Specifically some dung beetle research that's going on in Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Now, it's been, gosh, probably 20 years since I've been to the Smokies. Miss Bonnie, you might recall the last time we were in the Smokies together, the only time we were in the Smokies together, 20 years ago, 21 years ago, I think. One of the things that blew me over at that time about the Smoky Mountains was they were known, and they still are known, the Smokies are known as the salamander capital of the world. There's 20, they keep finding new ones. They're getting close to 30 different species of salamanders that live in the Smokies. Well, there's also a lot of other things that live there too, as it turns out. And the Park Service and the management at Great Smoky Mountain National Park has been undertaking an effort, and this goes back probably more than 20 years. They've been trying to catalog everything that lives there. And so not just birds, or not just salamanders, and not just birds, I mean, everything, including plants and fungi, everything. So it's a massive, in fact, the article describes it as a massive and unparalleled effort to document every single species in the park, from microbes to towering tulip trees. So all these teams of scientists have their specialties. Well, it turns out that there's a woman who specializes in dung beetles. And she's been going about surveying the dung beetles that live in the park there. And I thought it was kind of funny. They say, let's see, the gentleman who is supervising the research, he said that they've cataloged more than a quarter of the estimated 60,000 to 80,000 species present in the Great Smoky Mountains. At the same time, he said that there's not that much information on beetles. But he says it's not that surprising because there aren't that many people in the world that work on these dung beetles. So here they've been making traps. They went to an organic dairy farm and they collected dung from there, and then they cooked it so that they wouldn't be introducing any pathogens or anything into the park. And they made these little traps then that would attract the park's dung beetles. What they found was that a lot of them actually are non-native. I wasn't aware of this, and I don't know, maybe you were, maybe not, that back in the 100 years ago, maybe somewhat less, European dung beetles were introduced by the cattle industry. So when you think about it, especially high production cattle farms where there's a lot of cattle producing a lot of dung, and cattle, they don't like to graze amongst, the dung. Dung beetles perform a valuable service. There's actually 3 different ways that they can uh, use the dung. Some just live inside of it and consume it from the inside out. Some will bury it, and some roll it away. I think those are the most famous ones. In fact, I've got a picture here that I'll show you in just a second. This is a beautiful one, isn't it? This is a rainbow scarab that is present in the park. They actually do give a nod to the Egyptians in this article too. And how they said that the rolling behavior of the Egyptians, sorry, not the Egyptians themselves rolling, but the Egyptians noticing the scarab beetles rolling the dung. It caught their attention. And they believed that that Khepri, the scarab-faced god, similarly rolled the sun across the sky. So there's that connection there. Now I'm going to see if I can pull up these other photos too. But what they're finding is that there's our requisite Park District commercial. Let's go to this. Let me move this out of the way here. Let's pull this one up. There we go. So dung beetles, the ones that roll the dung away, again, huge help to cattle ranchers. They use their front legs for pushing the ball along, and then they use their middle and their back legs for controlling the ball. And they can move along pretty well and get this material moved out of the way. The more dung beetles there are, the cleaner the farm will be. Now, we do have scarab beetles, not quite this size, out at Primrose Farm. I've been known to go out there and peek underneath the cow patties. My goal is to find some of these more colorful ones that I understand do exist here in Illinois, but haven't found them yet. And I don't have the credentials that, let's see, the woman's name is Dr. Maggie Mamentov. I don't have the credentials she has in her 20-some years of studying the dung beetle. Here's another look at the picture, the beetle that was pictured in the magazine too. Some of these things are just absolutely gorgeous. And this one, I believe, is a little shy of an inch in length. So pretty good size for an insect as well. Now, we're going to do a little segue here. And we're going to go to another article, courtesy of Susie. And this comes from National Wildlife Federation's magazine, their summer 2024 issue. They they wrote, and I have to say, this is a topic that I was really into back in the 1970s when Jane Goodall was in the Gombe Reserve studying chimps and reporting on how they were using twigs to fetch termites out of termite colonies, documenting the use of tools. I thought that was so cool. And I really considered going into that area of study. I just couldn't quite figure out how I wanted to go about that. So I do what I do now, but this article talks about all different aspects of animals using tools, and they cite sea otters that put a rock on their belly to smash open mussel shells. And they talk about capuchin monkeys that use rocks to open hard-shelled nuts. And then they mention how there's 7 different types of herons that will float objects on the water in order to attract fish that then makes them easier to catch. And crows, crows are so smart. They've been documented using tools. There's footage of crows putting nuts on roadways and then having the cars crack the nuts open for them. Well, you might be thinking, okay, so how are we gonna? What does this have to do with dung beetles? I am trying to stay focused on this. Dung beetles. It turns out dung beetles are part of the diet of, drum roll, burrowing owls. So burrowing owls, they live in various parts of the West. There's a relic population of them still in Florida. And looking at burrowing owl pellets, this was back, I think in 2004, this research began. Students noticed that there were beetle shells in the owls of these, the pellets of these owls. They weren't just any beetle shells, they were dung beetle shells. And what they have now documented is burrowing owls collecting dung. Out west, they collect the droppings from prairie dogs. And actually, I think regular dogs too. They said that it's the dung of omnivores. And they will put this dung around their burrows, which attracts the dung beetles, which then makes it easier for them to catch what apparently is one of their favorite prey items. So isn't that kind of cool? Burrowing owls and dung beetles. Who knew there was a connection like that? All right, well, thanks, Susie, for sending these. We've got some other articles that we will take a look at another time. Let's move on to some other more local nature news. This was a photograph I received. It was a text that I got on the 4th of July. Now, this is a little one. If you know your eggs, you might be able to recognize that egg laid in a very minimal gravel type nest. This is over at Langham Park. That is a killdeer egg. And yes, that's a baby killdeer. And yes, this is the 4th of July. And yes, Langham Park is now where the park district shoots off fireworks. So it was a very busy place on the morning of the 4th of July as our crews were going about getting ready, and the fireworks vendor was coming in, getting ready to set up. Well, there were the 2 parents. Killdeer are very good at co-parenting. They share the incubating duties on the nest. They share the feeding of the young. They are, I don't know if it's easier or harder. They're young. When they come out of the egg, they don't spend very long in the nest. They're what are called precocial young. So they come out of the egg, they dry off, and within usually a day, they are ready to start moving around. Parents help them find insects, which make up their diet. Well, on this particular day, there was mom killdeer and dad killdeer. And then there were 2 junior killdeers that were with them. But then there were these 2 other ones that were still at the nest. So this little one here that has hatched wasn't quite ready to start moving yet. And then there was the egg. Now, I looked closely at this photo. I didn't see any signs of pipping or, the little one inside starting to pop through. So I don't know the status, and I did not go over there that day to see what was going on. I generally, it's been my policy for 17 years to stay as far away from possible from all that activity, unless of course I'm asked to help out, which I haven't been. So the staff there was pretty concerned because the parents were doing their broken wing display, you know, where they act like they're injured to draw attention away from the nest. Um, we are not though completely new to this whole killdeer nesting on the ground in inconvenient places thing. We've had them in our parks a number of times in high traffic areas. In fact, a couple of years ago, they were in the nature playground at Hickory Knolls right when we were having starting our school field trips, and we're going to be having hundreds and hundreds of kindergartners playing in that play area. Killdeer, they accept the risk of being around people. I think a lot of them realize that as loud and obnoxious and big as we are, we do help keep the predators away. So our crews did what we have done in other situations like this. They set up some cones. They put some caution tape around this area, and the parents did fuss quite a bit throughout the day, but this kept foot traffic away from that area. I don't know, fireworks are I know they scare a lot of wildlife. Now the actual fireworks were not being shot up off right here where the nest was, so that was a good thing. I'm sure the parents and the babies heard the booms, but my understanding is that everything went okay, and that all the killdeer, the babies, and the egg were all present and accounted for the following day. So happy ending, and some nice work by our crews on hand there to make sure that this little family got as much protection as was possible, given that it was the 4th of July and this is the fireworks park. Here's another little baby, a completely different group of animals. So this was a little caterpillar that I didn't even know was on my shoulder. This was part of our weekly nerd walk that happens on Fridays. This was at Leroy Oaks Forest Preserve last Friday, and our friend Sarah noticed that I had a caterpillar on my shoulder. So it's really cool too. Let's zoom in. This isn't any ordinary caterpillar. This has a lot of bells and a lot of whistles. It turns out, if we look closely here, it also had a full tummy and was relieving itself right there on my hand. So I'm guessing this must have fallen. We were walking, if any of you are familiar with Ranger Josh at Creek Bend Nature Center, he refers to the trail that goes along, let's see, when you leave the nature center and you're following the creek in the same direction, the Fearsome Creek, the same direction that it's flowing, you go through a portion of the trail that's on a highly eroded, very tall, bluffy-like bank. He calls that the danger trail. So I don't know if I brushed up against a leaf or if this caterpillar happened to fall, but anyway, it was on my my shoulder, and it wasn't really very active. I was a little worried that maybe it was injured, but then it went potty, so I figured it must be okay. And I didn't see any, sometimes a caterpillar that's injured, you'll see fluids leaking out from one place or another, and it was completely intact. In fact, this did not capture well, but this was such a pretty, it was iridescent green, which would make sense given that caterpillars feed on leaves. The sunlight, this picture does not do it justice. but it was quite a remarkable looking little dupe that I was given as a souvenir from our little friend. Of course, then I dropped it. There's no way I was going to find it again. So I just continued to take pictures of the caterpillar, and I would say 99.999% sure that this is a cecropia moth caterpillar, and I think it's in its second instar. So immature insects, as they age, go through different stages called instars. I think cecropias have 5 different instars, and I'm thinking this is number 2. This is not small enough to have just come out of the egg. But still, it wasn't very big. I would say it was maybe a centimeter in length. So once we became aware of it, then the goal became to find a place to put it. Now, cecropias are known to feed on a number of broadleaf hardwood trees. And since where we had been walking at was predominantly white oaks, we made that the goal then to find another white oak. And we found some, again, if you're familiar with Leroy Oaks, there's that really busy part of Fearson Creek. It's not too far from the picnic shelter. The bank is lower, but but also highly eroded. There's some memorial trees that have been planted there. We looked at those and I thought, that might be okay for feeding, but when it comes time to pupate, this caterpillar could crawl down into a lot of activity because it's always busy there. So then we started looking for a more secluded oak tree, of which there are many, but there wasn't a lot of, there was no way to reach the leaves of those more remote oak trees. So we finally decided, as we looped through the woods of Leroy Oaks, to choose one of the oak trees that is across the parking lot from the picnic shelter, the older picnic shelter at Leroy Oaks. There's a couple of oaks there where the branches stretch out and down, and we were able to find one here where we could place the little one and wish it well. It started eating almost immediately. These guys, that is their job. Caterpillar's job is to just feed and feed and feed. Well, yeah, and poop and poop and poop. But that's what they do because this is a creature that will not feed as an adult. So all the fat stores that it's able to create in this stage are going to be what benefits it in its adult stage. Now, you might be thinking, okay, bells, whistles, what are you talking about? Oops, let's see. This is what we're talking about. This was a picture a reader had sent me last year of a cecropia moth in its final instar. So right before it was going to pupate, it was on the sidewalk, and that's what these things do. They will spend those first those 5 stages in their host tree feeding, but when it comes time to pupate, they will generally climb down and they'll look for a place in leaf litter. This one happened to be crossing a sidewalk when it was noticed, but look at all of these cool ornaments on here. These balls, these yellow, these spikes of yellow and blue. Now, the caterpillar, the head is over here on the left, and I think it might be curled under just a little bit. Here is another cecropia caterpillar, and the head is on the right here. And here you can see some of these, again, what I think of as bells and whistles, are orange up here, these spikes. Really one of our coolest looking caterpillars, and they do get quite large, as we saw here, close to 4 inches long. That's a lot of caterpillar. And it would figure then that a large caterpillar is going to turn into a large moth. And this is also, another photo from a reader. This was a few years ago. They found it when they were out walking their dog. This is an adult female cecropia moth. remember a few weeks ago we talked about polyphemus moths, and we looked at the specifically the large feathery antennae. When they look like two big feathers on the front of the moth's head, that's the male. The male uses those antennae to sense the pheromones of the female. The female pretty much just stays in place and lets those pheromones spread through the air. So her antennae are not nearly as large because they're not sensing that she knows the males are going to find her. So her job is to stay in one place. But this was not a pair of, not a lip balm, but a pair of reading glasses to give you a sense of the size. So very impressive moths. That caterpillar that we found at Leroy, that's, you know, a centimeter in length, it's going to grow and molt. I'm going to guess that it's going to pupate maybe by the end of the month, and then come out sometime in August. That individual will lay eggs. Let me think, do we have time to do another generation? I want to say that that little caterpillar is going to have enough time to grow up into a moth and lay eggs, and then its offspring will spend the winter in a cocoon. So time's a ticking, but we should see one more generation of these guys before it's time for them to go dormant for the winter. Super cool. All right, so this is not a great picture, but it was the best of the pictures that I was able to grab. There is seemingly a growing number of black squirrels in the area of, let's see, 4th Street, 5th Street, Oak, and was that Indiana? I actually saw one over by Haynes Middle School too. So it started off with just one, and then I've never seen two at the same time, but the areas that I'm seeing them in seem like it's a pretty broad range for just one animal to cover. So I think we've got a few black squirrels now. This one, it was in the middle of a lawn, and it started to come towards me before it changed its mind and scampered away. And it made me wonder if black squirrels like this get a little preferential treatment. You know, we used to talk about the albino squirrel up on Crane Road and how it lived. And I have not gotten an update. I don't know that it's dead, but I have not gotten any pictures of it now in about 6 months. And the people in that neighborhood were pretty proud of it and would send pictures frequently. So I don't know, it might not be there anymore, RIP, but I'm wondering if these people in this neighborhood are maybe feeding these guys a little bit more. Maybe some of them are being hand fed. It did seem a little bit tamer than the average squirrel. And I don't think that's a trait that goes along with the extra melanin in its body. But if you're local and you're in that area, again, this was just off of Oak Street, but I've also seen them on Indiana, and this was this was along 4th Street, but I've also seen them over on 5th Street. Keep your eyes open because it is kind of cool to see variations in our squirrel friends. And now this is courtesy of Laura. I'm not sure if you're on tonight, Laura. Laura's been busy teaching our little ones enrolled in summer. Oh, there you are. Hi, Laura.
Hey.
Yeah,
this
these
was
were some
wonderful
whoppers, absolute whoppers. Now, where this was this on one of the must be one of the non-paved areas?
Yeah, it was on a non-paved trail, and this picture doesn't show it justice as to how huge
Let's see.
It
I didn't
really
want to show
was.
little faces, but
Yeah,
we
and
could
the
show
fingers.
little hands.
And today was Bird Day for the nature discoverers, and tomorrow is Fungus Day. And I'm like, well, guys, I think we're switching because today is Day.
Well, one of the names for this fungus is pheasant back, and pheasants are birds. So maybe that would have worked.
Yeah, I'll try and explain it to the 3-year-olds.
Yeah, yeah, you do that, Laura. Let me know how it goes. Yeah, this was
It
really
was outstanding. We were gonna take we were gonna go straight, and I could see it how big it was. I changed our little path. I said, yeah, we're going left, and the kids were like, "What is this thing?" So they'll learn more tomorrow on actual fungus day.
yeah. Well, that looks like is that a basswood tree? Whoops. Um,
I'm
I
not
don't,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure either. I know we see a lot of these, a lot of times we see these on box elders. I don't know if that's necessarily box elder bark either, but you found these too.
Well,
Looks like we
there's
got,
a plethora of
yeah,
different fungi there.
yeah, that's like a buffet for and there's I like that's not a lip balm, but it's a foot.
It's a foot. I
But
like, I really love the one to the bottom left. It looks like some sort of alien like
oh,
creature
let's see if we
with
can
its
zoom in.
suction cups. I don't know.
Yeah, like here it does. Like,
Yeah.
wasn't there some Saturday morning like a Sid and Marty Croft character? You know,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
or something have something that looked
Can't think
or
of it, but yes.
maybe there might have been some Muppets that had those.
Oh, yeah, as their noses.
Was it
Oh,
the phenomena beep
na
beep?
na 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 mana mana. Yeah, we're aging ourselves, but yes.
Well, this I believe this is a young pheasant. And pheasantback and dryad saddle are two names for the same fungus, and I don't remember what the Latin name is for it. But I believe when they're small like this, so it is an edible fungus, and the giant one that you guys found, it's not edible at that stage, but it's not because it'll kill you, it's just too tough. As they grow, the tissue gets really tough. I guess that you could still use it if you wanted to flavor stock. They taste a little bit like watermelon rind, which is an interesting component if you're going to do some foraging and cooking. But the uh, uh, the rule is if you can see the pores on the back of the mushroom, then it's too late. But when they're this, I don't know that the pores are visible yet. Not that, of course, we advocate collecting in our parks, but that is, you know, if you get maroon there, could be an option. Just make sure you cook it first. But gosh, it looks like there's a lot of millipedes there too, isn't there?
Yeah,
Here's one.
yeah. I mean, but if you look at the stump too, I mean, there's all around, there seems to be different
Yeah.
fungi. I mean, if you go up, I mean,
Yeah.
all sorts. It was like, wow. Now, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds weren't as excited as I was, but I was like, I got to take a picture of this. And they're like, why? I'm like, I can't explain, but it's so cool.
Well, we are so I was really kind of gearing up again for a summer like we've had the last 2 years, where we get a lot of rain in the spring and then the faucet just shuts off and we're dry for June, July, and August. So I'm kind of tickled that we're having this rain and it's producing all kinds of effects, the lush growth and so many of our woodland plants, the Joe Pye. When I was there last week, oh my goodness, the Joe Pye. In fact, the Joe Pye here at the house has taken over too. But
Oh, the
the
Joe Pye is so tall at Delnor and at my house too. And the
yeah,
sparrows are into it already. So
love and this moisture. But yeah,
yeah,
this is such a great example. I think this white up here, I think that's a type of jelly fungus.
it
In
looks
fact,
like a jelly. Yeah.
white jelly. It's kind of squishy like as opposed to some of these other fungi that are more crusty. Um, and then these millipedes, look at them. They're
And
just
you know
all
what's
over
funny,
here.
Pam, is I didn't even notice the millipedes. I was
Oh,
just
yeah.
focusing on the fungus.
Well,
Oh,
they go together.
yeah.
They
I'm
maybe
hoping I'm
are you
hoping we get some stinkhorns out of the mulch because those are at Delnor because the kids love those, and so
say
do
that
I.
again? The what
Stinkhorns?
oh stink oh yeah,
Yeah.
stinkhorn. Well, Delnor Woods, a little history. The Park District acquired that land from the Collins family in, I think it was 1999, and around 2000, and getting the park ready for the public and involved, putting in the picnic shelter and a playground and putting wood chips down. Well, whenever you put down wood chips, you always invite fungi and stinkhorns and also dead man's fingers.
Oh, I love
That
those.
Delnor Woods, that was the first place I saw those. I was
Oh,
pretty new to this field at that time, and I just remember those
we
fingers.
have some of those in our backyard. They keep coming up around a tree, a part of a log that we let just stay and decompose, and it's so cool. Dead men fingers are my favorite. Well,
They
one of my favorites.
they are, yeah. Well, Laura, I sure appreciate you taking these photos. And good luck tomorrow with Fungus Day. With the rain we've had today, you might have a whole new crop of
Yeah, we're
things.
gonna take another path and see what we can find.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for sharing. Um, let's see. I think we're actually getting close to the end. Yeah, I saw this and I thought it was worth sharing. Um, you know, I do my best, but I need, and I know some of you will jump on board as things uh, as we look at our great natural world. There's some cool things. There's some weird things. I would love to have some company, and I won't have to keep doing all the weird all by myself. With that, let's stop this year. Let's take one more look here at our beetle friend who miraculously has not been eaten by any of the furry roommates, although the cat has been circling too. I don't know if it's the fact that the other beetles are moving around and kind of scratching in their enclosure, or if again these osmodermas, they're also called the leather beetles for the way they smell, and I'm just not getting any sort of smell other than uh, apple. But if there are more beetles next week, you guys will be amongst the first to know, and we'll do a little deeper dive into the species and the role they play in our surrounding environment. Um, that's what I had tonight, folks. Let's see if there are any I think there's a couple of comments here. Meredith, you got your scarab necklace in the 70s at the King. Yeah, cannot remember where this one came from, but that time frame seems to be about right. There was I remember when King Tut came to Chicago, I was in a speech class, and there was somebody in our class that gave a speech, and she used the pronunciation to Tankaman, which I had never heard before. And that would have been, yeah, about, I don't know, 78, 76, 77, somewhere in that range. So this might be from that same era. Uh-oh, and Jerry's got a spotted lanternfly. Oh wow. Um, that is a bummer. I've heard a lot about them. This is the newest invader that we need to be on the lookout for, and it's one that the instructions are to kill on sight. The tricky part comes in that it changes markedly over its different instars as it grows towards its adulthood, and uh, you don't want to squish something that is perhaps helpful. But Jerry, if you're still here,
I am.
and you sound doggone it just like Laura.
I know, it's true.
I love it. So what were the circumstances of this find?
So I didn't see it. Somebody reported it on Facebook and then posted a link to say, if you see these, you should kill them. So I've been on the lookout.
Okay.
I haven't seen it myself. It was right by the river, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that that had anything to do with it, but
Well, yeah, there were I had been asked by a homeowners group out here to include spotted lanternflies in a talk on cicadas back in May. And the research that I was able to find at the time, there were some iNaturalist records, and it was from the Lakeview neighborhood last year.
yeah, so that was the first time it was spotted in Chicago, I think, was
Okay.
last year. So, and we're like, if you're at Wrigley Field and you had about 20 minutes north and a little bit west, that's where we're at, just right
Okay.
along the Chicago River. So it's not super far. And they have wings.
Yeah, they are one of the ones that flies too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna see if I can pull up a picture real quick. And we can let's see. I remember hearing that as people were getting their yards ready for winter, to be on the lookout for egg cases. Let's see, I'll pull this one up here. Let's visit this site. This is from the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, and I'm gonna hold on here. Where's my Zoom window? There we go. All right, I'm gonna share the screen, and I'm gonna. Oh boy, what is that? There we go. All right, let's go back here and let's go to this. Okay, so the egg masses, from what I understand, they look like smears of mud. Now this one looks pretty fresh. This one's shiny, but I've also seen them look just like, somebody flung a wad of like clay or plaster against a tree. And then look at how they change over them. They're actually kind of cool looking bugs. They look like a moth, but they're not. They are a true bug, and that's where the trouble is, because they feed on a lot of plants. They're not specific to a certain type of tree. But they have been known to cause a lot of economic damage to crops. So I guess we should all keep our eyes open, and not necessarily the thing we want to have to talk about, but I think it would be interesting if we were to find some and get a handle on where their ranges are. So thanks for that news, Jerry.
Welcome. My
uh,
husband wanted me to tell you one other thing. He heard something on the radio about jumping worms,
Oh, yeah,
and that the advice was to put them in a plastic bag and leave them to cook in the sun, which seemed awfully cruel. Wouldn't you just squish it? But anyway, he's like, ask Pam about the jumping worms.
yeah, yeah. Jumping worms, they're a thing too. I believe they're an Asian species that has come over in plant material, the soil around plants. In fact, they're one of the ways that they can spread is through plant sales. Like if people are selling plants from their yard and they're unaware that they have them in their soil, and you buy plants, off the street, or, somebody's they dug up their daylilies and they put them on the curb. That's a way that these things can spread too, but they're very wiggly, which gives them that name, jumping worm. And the way that their biggest impact, let's stop. Well, actually, you know what? Hold on. I bet I could find a jumping worm. They writhe a lot more than the average worm does, and they process the detritus in the soil a lot faster than our native worms. Here, let's go back. Let's do an image first. They have this on this clitellum, this band around their body is lighter in color. Here's a graphic here that compares the two. So on and our other worms aren't native either. So, we've got our largely European worms that are in the soil that are a lot of times welcomed by gardeners because they help aerate, they move things around, they process nutrients. They are problematic in woodlands. Well, the jumping worms, they're a problem no matter where they are, because the speed at which they digest leaf litter and other organic materials, and they turn it into something that's kind of useless. Worm castings are oftentimes valued for the nutrients they hold. And these guys, what they leave behind, they say that the soil takes on a characteristic of, it looks like coffee grounds. And it just kind of ruins it for all the other organisms that would rely on it. So, but the clitellum on a jumping worm is light in color, as opposed to a more natural worm color of these other non-native species. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't actually seen one around here, but I know that was another thing that we're all supposed to be on the lookout for, the jumping worms. And
If I see a worm with an actual mouth, I think I'm gonna freak out. That's gross. That's creepy. That's a creepy worm.
The stuff of nightmares, I tell you.
Yes.
Things are getting weirder. All right. So yeah, he's right on with that. And I let's see. How do I stop this share? There we go. I agree with you, Jerry, that yeah, why not just smash them as opposed to letting them, linger. But maybe, I don't know, if there's a lot of them, maybe that's the faster way to collect them. I don't know. But maybe we should do a little dive into invasive species at a future meeting. that's, I'll see. Let's see what the coming weeks hold here. Keep us posted, will you? On
All right, I'll keep a lookout for them. I've been doing some guerrilla pruning around the neighborhood,
oh, yeah.
at intersections where you can't see pedestrians or the stop sign, so I'll especially keep my eye out when I
Good deal.
pruning.
Well, appreciate those updates and all the other good nature that we've seen this week. Folks, take care, enjoy. I always say it's always nicer to have a little more rain than a little less rain. We are not in the path of what I guess is now Tropical Storm Beryl. We're just getting the tailings of it here. It's going to be good growing weather for the next few weeks. We'll talk about that and other things when we get together again next week. So everybody have a great rest of your week.
Good night.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam. Volleyball rained out tonight.
Oh,
So I came here.
I appreciate
Thanks,
it,
Pam.
Chris. It's always nice to have you.
Thank